All right, today we're diving into the really complex controversy surrounding the Egyptian preacher Abdullah Rushdi. This is one of those stories where some deeply personal allegations have just exploded into a huge public fight over influence and accountability. So let's break it all down.
Think about that for a second. That's not just someone disagreeing with him. That's a direct quote from a public petition against Rushdi. I mean, calling a public figure a danger, that's a huge deal. So how did we get here? We've got to look at exactly what he's being accused of.
And yeah, that public outcry, that's really our starting point. It's what turned this into a much bigger conversation about Rushdi's role and his influence as a public figure.
So what's the bottom line of this petition? It's actually pretty simple. The people who signed it are calling on Egypt's Minister of Endowments, that's the government group that oversees mosques and religious stuff, to completely remove Rushdi from his job. They want him barred from preaching or even appearing on TV as a preacher.
And the accusations are, well, they're really severe. The petition basically says that Rushdi's public statements are giving religious and legal cover to harassers, that he's justifying these awful acts, and just generally creating this whole climate of intolerance. These are the specific things that are fueling that call for him to be dismissed.
So what lit the fuse on all of this? To get to the bottom of it, we have to look at a really personal story that just recently came out, and it's what turned a public debate into this huge private drama playing out for everyone to see.
And that's where Egyptian blogger Amina Hegazi comes into the picture. Her story is absolutely central to everything that's happening right now. It's her personal account that brought a private dispute right into the public spotlight.
And when she finally spoke about it on TV for the first time, this is how she put it. So right away you can see she's framing this not as some simple breakup, but as something that caused her profound personal trauma.
So here's a quick timeline of how she says things went down. It all started in May with a formal proposal. They had a wedding that both of their families knew about, but pretty soon, things got rocky, and Hegazi started getting all this online hate from Rushdi's followers. Eventually, it got to the point where she just wanted a quiet, respectful way out.
And right from the get-go, Hegazi says there were some red flags. For instance, she pointed to the marriage certificate. It listed Rushdi as unmarried, even though she knew for a fact that he'd been married before. And the tension just kept building from there. She says that after she filed an official police report about the online harassment she was getting, Rushdi actually asked her to drop it. Just adding another complicated layer to their relationship falling apart.
And now we get to the core issue, the thing that really blew this whole story wide open for the public. And it's all about their daughter.
So how did this all spill out into the open? A birth certificate. It started circulating online, and all of a sudden everyone was asking questions that Rushdi hadn't answered. Hegazi says what really hurt her the most was his total silence while all this was happening.
And this right here is the heart of the whole conflict. According to Hegazi, she was trying to handle it all privately, looking for a friendly way to resolve things. But she alleges that Rushdi just flat out refused to reconcile and refused to publicly recognize their daughter.
And her public plea is actually really simple. She's been very clear that she's not after money or fame, she just wants him to acknowledge their child. She frames it as a basic, fundamental right for both her and her little girl. And this alleged refusal didn't just affect her. Hegazi mentioned that her own father, who had apparently really trusted Rushdi as a man of religion, did a complete 180. His opinion of Rushdi totally changed once he learned about his refusal to recognize the child.
What makes this even more painful, according to Hegazi, is the spiritual side of it all. She said she saw Rushdi as this religious role model who was going to help her in her faith. But instead, she says the whole experience just destroyed her dignity and even made her start to doubt her own beliefs.
So with all this public drama and these really serious personal allegations swirling around, you might think he'd step out of the spotlight for a bit, right? Well, not exactly. Which brings us to the latest chapter, a planned TV appearance.
Okay, so here's a quick rundown of what happened. Rushdi recorded an interview with a host named Yasmin El-Khatib. She started promoting it, but then, just as quickly, the network announced the broadcast was being postponed, which of course started all these rumors. But the host later made it clear that Rushdi himself didn't cancel anything.
And there's this one little detail from the whole TV thing that got a ton of attention on its own. The host, Yasmin, posted a photo of herself promoting the interview wearing a hijab. And she said that was a condition Rushdi himself had set just to do the interview.
So why the delay? Well, the network's official reason was actually pretty practical. It turns out the show was scheduled for the exact same time as a huge football match in Egypt, so they decided to push it back to make sure they'd get the most viewers possible.
And all of this leaves us with a huge question, doesn't it? When a public figure's private life seems to completely clash with their public persona and their teachings, how do you measure accountability? In a situation like this, where a personal fight is now a public debate, who gets to decide where that line is drawn between someone's private life and their professional one?